Welcome, fellows, to Day 2 of Mid-Program Workshop. We hope you enjoyed Day 1 of Mid-Program Workshop, where you reflected and connected with your pod group and watched the recorded videos from the other pod groups. We hope you also took the time to meet with your host supervisor for a mid-practicum review and feedback session. If you haven't had a chance to do that quite yet, don't worry, we hope that you will schedule time this week with your host supervisor for your mid-practicum review. Now that we've looked back on the past 2 months and you've identified which goals you have reached, skills you have developed, what challenges you faced, you heard from others, you reflected on the guiding principles, we are now ready to focus on the present moment and the next steps for your fellowship. Though your fellowship will, of course, remain consistent with your practicum work at your host organization and with your CLI subjects, you will also start to plan your community action project. You'll think through your ideas more with your pod groups and host supervisors and peer learning counterparts in the months ahead. This is the point in the fellowship where you should have a strong understanding of the work of your host organization. And now think about if and what you can adapt or apply to your home context for your community action project. Let's get started. So this session will consist of 2 pre-recorded videos, beginning with this one. We will focus in on your community action project. You will hear from the CSB team and alumni to help set the stage for planning and implementing your community action project. By the end of this full session, you will identify a need in your community and explore how you will address that need through your community action project. In this one particular video, the objective is that by the end, you will better understand the requirements and deliverables of your community action project. Up till now, you have been focusing your CSB experience on the CLI and your practicum, as we've talked about. You have thought of an idea for your project, which you have shared with your IREX advisor and your host supervisor through your practicum work plan. These videos, this one and the next, will help you move through the ideation phase into the planning phase of your project. You might already have a really strong idea, or you may just be beginning to form an idea. Wherever you are, it is fine. We will go through this together. Let's get started first by reviewing what your community action project should be. This can also be found in the Community Action Project one-pager. Let's start by being sure that we are all on the same page and understand what your community action project is and what are its requirements. First, your community action project, or CAP, as we call it for short, is a small-scale or pilot project to be implemented from January through June of 2019. This is very important to note that, again, it is a small-scale project or a pilot, such as a test project for something you might want to scale up later, and it should be implemented and therefore measured from January through June of 2019. It might be part of a much larger project that lasts a few years, but for the requirement of CSP, it will be a 6-month project. Next, it should largely be planned while you're here in the US and then implemented when you return back home. You will have some time after you return home, the month of December, to continue the planning phase before implementation starting in January. Next, it should be within your thematic area and relevant to your current work. Of course, you might have crossover or intersections with other thematic areas, but it should be related to your work that you are already doing. So this should be either an addition or an innovation or something new but still related to what you're doing. It should not be necessarily something completely new and completely different. It should be connected to what you are doing. Next, it should address a community need. This is very important, and also should be aligned with your vision for community change. We'll go through all of this soon, but a successful project addresses a need that your community has and is also, like this says, aligned with your vision. So it's marrying those two. Next, it should also be realistic to implement within the time and resources that you have. This part is very important, knowing that the resources you have largely depends on either what you currently have or what you think you're able to fundraise. You will not be receiving specific money or grants for your follow-on project from CSP or from IREX or from the State Department. So a low budgeted, very low resourced project is very important to consider. Again, it must be realistic to implement in the time frame of January through June of 2019. Therefore, you might think of a very small scale, like we talked about before, so that it is realistic. Next, it really should be planned to put to place the skills and the knowledge that you've learned throughout your experience in the US through your practicum and the CLI, and really integrating all of these new skills and knowledge into your work back home through your community action project. We have an example here on the screen. It's a picture of one of our alumni from 2015 who implemented his project where students were receiving and working with solar lights to aid in their studying. And this was in Ghana a few years ago, to give you a little bit of inspiration. So now let's review what are your community action project deliverables and deadlines for your community solutions program. So there will be a number of different dates and deadlines related to your community action project, and I'll review that with you right now. First, you will be completing the Community Action Project brainstorming worksheet during this session in the next video. This is a worksheet that's purely for brainstorming and just for you to jot down different ideas and guide you through a process. You will be submitting that worksheet in mid-program workshop, not for feedback, but just to show the CSP team that you've gone through the brainstorming process. Next, you'll be developing a community action project profile page on the CLI platform using a CSP template, and your brainstorming worksheet will help you through that. Now, this will be due by October 12th. We will go into much further detail about this in the next session, so right now, don't worry about that until you hear from us further about developing out your CAP profile page and also providing feedback to your pod group members later in October. Next, you will then want to finalize that profile page, which I just mentioned, and also submit your community action project proposal in your fundamental document by November 4th. You may remember that your fundamental document includes your personal leadership plan, which you're working with Deidre, as well as your practicum work plan. We will go into that again in a lot more detail in the future. So for now, just know that you will be working on that community action project profile page soon. Next, one of the reasons why you'll create that page is that at the end of program workshop, when you are all back together again in DC, we will have an end of program reception where we invite all different guests from all different sectors in DC, different host organizations, to come to a poster show where they will learn about the work that you have been doing in the US and that you will plan to do when you return back home. Each one of you will have a poster that the CSP team here at IREX will put together for you that you will showcase your community action project on. We will gather the information for this poster directly from your CLI CAP profile page. That's why it's really important for you to finalize that CAP profile page by November 4th. Again, we'll go into much more detail about this soon. Next, after you return home, you will be providing updates to your IREX advisor every month, as well as attending a monthly discussion session on the CLI where all the fellows can come back together again and discuss the progress you made on your projects as well as the challenges. This will be a great monthly check-in with your other fellows to really feel that connection and support for one another. We also really encourage you to organize monthly pod group check-ins about your projects, and you can continue using the OBA platform to do so, and we encourage you to continue talking to your host organization. Finally, in July of 2019, we will ask you to submit a specific final reflection report on your community action project. Now, all of this again is included in your CAP one-pager. So what's next? Next, take a look at that CAP one-pager, which has all the different deliverables on it, and then proceed to video 2, where we will walk you through the Community Action Project brainstorming worksheet to help you think through some of your ideas for your project. Thank you so much for joining me on this video. I hope that you have learned about the different requirements and deliverables for your CAP, and we're excited to get started with you all.